Deborah Hartman likes to play games.
Come on.
She was sexy. She was hot, attractive, every man's dream.
Deborah had men under a spell, just the way that she looked at them. It was really something else.
She toys with men like puppets.
She was a professional at getting men to do what she wanted them to do, and she knew how to do it.
And when she sets her sights on a win, she'll stop at nothing to take home the prize.
Every guy that she touched, she poisoned.
Chicago, Illinois is a city with a colorful past. One that always straddled the fine line between naughty and nice. Just outside sits the sleepy suburb of Northbrook, untouched by the corruption of big city life.
Northbrook is a quiet, rich North suburban town. Nothing ever happens there. Speeding tickets, maybe somebody rolling through a stop sign. That's big news and big crime in Northbrook.
But its sterling reputation is about to be tarnished. On June 9, 1982, Deborah Hartman enters the Northbrook police station with a horrible story to tell. After a night out on the town, she's returned home with her stepdaughter to find a grisly scene.
And they run into the police station, and she tells the sergeant at the desk, my husband just committed suicide. Send help.
But when police respond, they find her husband Werner's suicide seems very suspicious.
He was shot 16 times. To claim that it was suicide was a joke, really, you know.
A patrol officer saw Werner's body and immediately knew that this was not a suicide. There was no weapon present.
And at the police station, Werner's grieving widow acts a little too nonchalant.
And at one point, in the detective room, she curls up and takes a nap. Not exactly what you would expect from somebody whose loved one was just murdered.
Investigators can't help but wonder, what does this sleeping beauty know? Deborah is born in Pittsburgh in 1956. Sadly, her childhood is no dream.
16 hours a day, what do I get from you?
Your dinner is over.
Debbie grew up in a home where the father was at least beating the mother, possibly Debbie. So something was going on in that household that was obviously damaging.
With an abusive father ruling her world, Deborah's rocky beginnings shape her future.
She probably tried over and over again to win her father's approval, and that didn't really work when she was growing up. So at some point, she decided to simplify the formula. What do men equal? What can I use them for so I don't feel so bad about myself? And so at some point, she said, hey, men equal money.
Deborah runs away from home at 15 and works as a dance instructor, but struggles to pay the rent.
That was good. I think we're done for the day. All right.
That is until she decides to accept a dance with the devil.
Deborah was pretty. She was short, she was petite. She was very nicely built.
For Debbie, her sexuality became a tool. Men responded to how pretty she was, and she milked it.
She really stumbled onto something that she could use to control men, and that was the first time she felt like she had something that she could really rule men with.
Deborah drops her dance shoes and takes a job at a club on the west side of Chicago, where men are in the market for more than Swan Lake.
Smoker's Lounge was a place where you walked in, and there was girls sitting there, scantily clad, and you paid $75 for the right to go back to the VIP room, and there you negotiated with the girl what else was going to happen.
Deborah knows just how to work it.
It was obvious that Deborah knew how to use men, just by winking her eyes with her eyelashes or touch your arm or so you get the shivers. and it's like a man can melt.
She made sure that she got all the attention in the room from all the men. She knew what to say, how to say it, how to bend, where to bend it.
In 1978, when the self-professed stereo king of Chicago, Werner Hartman, strolls into the club, Deborah smells opportunity.
She learned how to shake people down for money. And when she learned who Werner was and how close he was and that he owned a business, I'm sure there was just little dollar signs going off in her eyes, kind of like in a cartoon.
A completely self-made man, Werner just happens to be filthy rich and recently divorced.
Werner was a German immigrant, came to this country at a time when people were very interested in having nice stereos for their car. So Werner established a business known as CRC, and he was very successful at it and made a lot of money.
After a whirlwind romance, Werner pops the question.
I think Werner to Debbie was a provider, somebody who could give her the lifestyle that she hoped she deserved.
Keep them close, come out, give me your hand.
I don't believe it was a typical marriage relationship. I think it was all about money from day one.
Werner has been sucked into Deborah's web.
He was madly in love with her to the point of obsession. I think she probably did anything he wanted because she knew she wanted to rope him in.
Yes?
When he saw this little petite beauty, he really was smitten by her. Whatever she did, she made him fall in love with her, and he worshiped her and gave her almost anything she wanted.
Deborah has Werner by the heartstrings, and she's gonna tug at them until they break. For sexy seductress Deborah Hartman, her marriage to millionaire Werner is like a winning lottery ticket.
Debbie sees men as toys. They're all her little playthings. And she is a puppet master of all these men. She's just riding the high of that power, the power she never had as a child.
Almost overnight, she trades sleaze for the swanky suburbs.
Werner was getting this woman that was beautiful, and she probably felt great having her on his arm. And I'm sure she was ecstatic about getting all the money that she was getting.
I gave you money like 2 days ago.
But sexy Deborah sticks out like a sore thumb in upscale Northbrook.
I do like those dresses.
Their father may be blinded by love, but Werner's teenage daughters see through Deborah's facade.
The girls nicknamed Debbie Miss Showcase because of who she was and how she acted, and they knew exactly what she was and what she was doing.
You should give me more money.
She actually came right out and said, you know, I married you for your money.
Oh, I think she was disdainful of men in general, and she'd been a user. That was her background. I don't know that there was any love in her heart for anybody but herself.
She constantly pushes the envelope to see how much will Werner take. And every time he accepts her again, it's her getting some kind of validation that he really loves her more and more.
Debbie would frequently engage in extramarital relations.
She even dangles her dalliances in Werner's face.
Debbie is a narcissist. And there is this blatant disregard for people around her, and she kind of does think that the universe should revolve around her.
One night in November of 1981, she pushes her luck a bit too far.
She came home with only her mink coat on, and her and Werner had this big fight.
Werner is desperate to work things out with his wife. He attempts to shoot out Deborah's tires to keep his young wife at home. She drives off unharmed, and she isn't through testing Werner's patience.
Debbie was driving, throwing champagne glasses out of the car when the police apprehended her. She was with a well-known narcotic dealer from Florida.
Deborah's playing fast and loose with Werner's emotions, and she's got plenty more tricks up her sleeve. By November of 1981, stereo king Werner Hartman's marriage to his wife Deborah is on life support. Still, she has no qualms about flaunting a new affair with a younger man named Michael Johnston, whom she meets at Werner's store.
How are you?
Werner must have felt his masculinity completely insulted at that point. She brought him onto his turf, and she let his employees see it. He was now being publicly humiliated in front of the people who worked for him.
It's practically a nail in the coffin.
Werner knew about the relationship because they flaunted it in front of him right openly and made no secret about it. It was an open and notorious affair that she was carrying on.
Seeing his wife with another man takes its toll.
Werner was really abused by Debbie, emotionally very manipulated, but a switch went off and he said, you know what, I deserve better than this.
Werner breaks the news to Deborah that he wants to end the marriage. She doesn't take it lying down.
When Werner started talking about divorce, Debbie started thinking about what she usually was thinking about, that's money, and what she was going to get out of it.
In January 1982, Deborah moves out of Northbrook and in with Michael. Together, the sexy couple paints the town red. Deborah's still spending Werner's fortune and bleeding him dry.
I think when Werner looked at those books, he finally realized that he had spent every penny on his wife's extravagant lifestyle.
Werner is broken and bankrupt. All he has left to protect are his 2 life insurance policies.
When Debbie and Werner got married, he took out a life insurance policy and named her as a beneficiary. And it was a substantial amount of money she would get if he died.
Werner meets with his insurance agent to make sure that Deborah won't ever get her hands on that money.
I gotta change my beneficiaries. Deborah's killing me.
I think the total on all the insurance policies came to about $800,000.
So if in case something should happen, God forbid, I don't want Deborah having any money.
Gotcha. If certain conditions are met at the time of death, then the policy pays double.
I want to go to my daughter's. So is there something you could do to change that?
One of the conditions in Werner's policy was if he was murdered.
Werner cuts Deborah out of his insurance policy to protect his family's future. Now he needs to cut Deborah out of his life to protect himself. But on June 8, 1982, Deborah meets Werner at home and says she is eager to settle their divorce amicably.
There's Debbie sweet-talking him and basically doing what Debbie did so well, and that's beguiling a fella who can be beguiled. And she talks to him, she assuages whatever doubts he has, and apparently he felt good as he went off to the shower.
They agree to meet later, and Deborah leaves. Werner doesn't know it, but this will be the last shower he will ever take. On June 9, 1982, the early morning quiet in the suburb of Northbrook is interrupted by the screams of Werner Hartman's daughter when she discovers her father's bullet-ridden body.
Tell them what happened.
Without any real evidence or leads, the case goes cold. But contrary to Werner Hartman's last wishes, his wife, not his 2 daughters, is the recipient of his life insurance policies. It seems Deborah was shocked to learn Werner had removed her as his beneficiary. So she paid her own visit to his insurance agent back in January of 1982.
Call me Debbie.
So then she persuaded him with $3,000 and her sexual favors to change the insurance beneficiary back to her name.
Relax. It's okay.
Debbie considered the deal was a done deal. She had her insurance policy. She was the beneficiary. She was going to get the money.
But Deborah would only get the insurance money in the event of Werner's untimely demise. Sure sounds like a motive. And her plan pays off big. By January of 1984, Deborah Hartman is living a life of luxury with Michael Johnston in tow.
She would sunbathe in her bikini in the front of the house.
She's living the high life still. She likes the high life. And she's spending money like it's going out of style.
It seems Deborah has gotten away with the perfect crime. But less than a year later, her web of lies begins to unravel when a strange coincidence leads police to their first piece of physical evidence in the case. In 1985, an undercover ATF agent is buying firearms from a suspected illegal gun dealer named Ken Canel.
Ken Canel says, I had a Mac and it got away from me. He said, but it's not for sale, caused a lot of trouble. He's not selling it.
The MAC-10 is the type of gun used to kill Werner Hartman. Could this possibly be the missing murder weapon?
If we could match up the slugs that are in the basement of Ken Canel with the slugs that were recovered from the floorboards in the bathroom at Werner Hartman's home, then we got a home run.
A search of Ken Canel's basement yields a clear-cut match. And that's not all. Investigators quickly discover that Ken Canel has a roommate, none other than Michael Johnston, Deborah Hartman's boyfriend. With Canel cornered, investigators use phone records to connect the dots. It seems Deborah hatched an elaborate plan. Authorities believe she persuaded Ken to kill her husband in exchange for $50,000 in cash. Allegedly, just before the murder, they get their hands on a MAC-10 machine gun. Canel claims he test-fired the weapon in his basement, but the gun was faulty. When he released the trigger, it kept on firing.
Ken backed out. He's like, I don't want to do this job. This is a bad gun.
Luckily for investigators, it left a trail of evidence all over his ceiling. But if Canel didn't shoot Werner, who did? Investigators believe Deborah came up with an alternate plan, and Werner became suspicious.
When Werner found Debbie on the phone, they were plotting Werner's death, trying to decide how to do it and get away with it.
At least in my head, it'll be like...
He's a scared guy. And so he has to know that something is going to happen.
He'll be gone, finally.
When Deborah left the house on that fateful night, police believe she set the stage for her own alibi. At 9:30 p.m., Deborah arrives at a nearby restaurant to meet Werner's daughter and ex-wife for pizza.
Pizza, we should go out clubbing for a little bit, have some...
The three of them dine and then dance until 4:30 a.m.
Debbie created this alibi and wanted to be somewhere with plenty of witnesses to attest to the fact that she was not back at the house murdering Werner.
Werner was murdered between 10 and 11 p.m. Police were never able to prove who actually pulled the trigger that night. No one in Deborah's circle confessed to the murder. But they do have enough evidence for a grand jury to indict Deborah Hartman, Michael Johnston, and Ken Canel on dozens of counts of fraud and conspiracy to commit murder in a lucrative insurance scam. Her neighbors are shocked to learn Deborah is implicated in the crime.
I just got chills up my spine because I thought, I can't believe that we've been living so close to her, talking to her, and you wouldn't think.
In the end, all of Deborah's puppets go down with their master. Ken Canel, Werner's insurance agent, and Michael Johnston are all sentenced to prison for their role in the scam.
She had them twisted right around her little finger. I often viewed her as a black widow spider that was just leading these guys down the primrose path. And indeed, they did follow.
Deborah Hartman is sentenced to 22 years in prison. To this day, no one has ever been convicted of Werner Hartman's murder.
Probably the best thing that ever happened to her in her life was meeting Werner Hartman. And what ended up being probably the worst thing that ever happened in her life was meeting Werner Hartman.
I think he made the bad mistake of thinking he could tame her, and it turned out to be a fatal mistake.
Deborah Hartman has since been released from prison. Her current whereabouts are unknown.
Deborah was truly a black widow, and every guy that she touched, she poisoned. She used everyone. She was a master manipulator.